It's another pleasant good morning and a warm welcome to your breakfast program, Good Morning Sierra, reaching you live from the Sierra Broadcasting Corporation Television on Channel 30. Reaching you live from our broadcasting house here in Freetown. So there happens to be the 30th day of the month of July 2026. This program is always started with analysis and targeted reviews and news and current affairs happenings in the country. I'm Dennis Phillips.
And I am Esther Sacco. Our quote today is from a British statement with Winston Churchill, and it says, "Success is not final. It is the courage to continue that counts." Success is not final. It is the courage to continue what counts.
As always, the food for thought for you are still coming up in the program this morning. Yes, they applied intelligence to discuss strengthening cybersecurity and digital transformation across Africa, particularly in Syria.
As Parliament debates continue, Kyle to discuss the importance of the Constitutional Amendment Bill.
And of course, NGC chairman to provide updates on the party's current states, internal challenges, and the future of the party. At this point, we invite you to be part of the program. You can participate by sending your thoughts, comments, or even suggestions to the number displayed on the screen. The program is Good Morning Sierra. Stay with us. Applied Intelligence is a trusted cyber partner serving leading financial institutions and development organizations across Africa and beyond. The organization provides a wider range of services, including comprehensive cybersecurity assessment, risk management, digital security awareness, training campaigns. As cyber threats continue to evolve, EST Applied Intelligence is working with organizations to strengthen digital resilience, safeguard critical information, and promote the secure adoption of emerging challenges. The Chief Executive Officer and Founder Lawrence McOwen is with us in the studio to discuss the growing importance of cybersecurity and how businesses and institutions can better protect themselves, especially in this current time of the digital infrastructure. Mr. Lawrence McOwen, welcome to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, SLBC, and good morning to our viewers.
Aside from the brief background I've given about your organization, which is not only providing awareness to cyber security for businesses and especially the general population of Sierra Leone, what is in terms of ICT?
Well, we offer a cybersecurity consultancy that cuts across the spectrum. We support both the private sector and the public sector, and we help organizations to understand, firstly, what are their cybersecurity requirements, help them to build the cybersecurity strategy, and then we help them to build that cybersecurity strategy on what is described as the digital transformation. So we cut across the whole spectrum itself.
Wow. So, of course, Lawrence, tell us, how can businesses and institutions get benefits from what you do?
Well, the very first thing we need to accept as a nation is that cybersecurity is no longer an option. It is integral to what we do as we get on the digital journey itself. So almost everywhere in Sierra Leone people talk about digital transformation, which is certainly a very good thing. But what we also have to realize is that you cannot discuss digital transformation without cybersecurity. So we're trying to get the government, we're trying to get the private sector, we're trying to get the public sector to get together and understand that actually, fundamentally, we need to agree as a nation that cybersecurity is a must, and we need to bolt it into everything we do within the digital landscape.
Just before I start commenting, Mr. Leone, you will agree with me. Of course, your intervention is coming at a critical time when we have scammers all around the place. I mean, some we send unsolicited messages requesting, they will hack into someone's phone, someone maybe it can be a family member or a relative, I mean, requesting for financial assistance or whatnot, or can even, I mean, bring you business proposal for you to just to lure you to invest into it. Later, a lot of people have really fall prey and to later realize that these are gimmicks of hackers. So what sort of, I mean, intervention have you, I mean, in terms of the awareness raising around cybersecurity space?
That's a very good question. And my direct response to that is that we need to realize that it's not a joke. The hacking industry itself is a multi-billion dollar industry. So this is not somebody sitting, you know, in their room trying to hack and do it for fun. It is an organized crime unit. What we're doing is creating awareness programs through our partners and through institutions that we support. So at this point in time, we're actively working with Roco Commercial Bank, helping them to develop the cybersecurity capability internally, but also supporting them to help their clients, their customers, and pushing cybersecurity beyond the financial sector itself. So under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Walton Gilpin, we have instantiated an initiative, which is the Walton Gilpin Cyber Circuit initiative. And that has an internal lens that is focusing on the bank, its data, and its customers, but also it has an external lens supporting institutions, academia, communities, and also, of course, the media as well. So through the awareness programs, through sensitization and organizing symposium across the nation, we're creating that awareness for people to understand what are the do's, what are the don'ts, and how they can securely navigate cyberspace. Because cybersecurity is not only about the technical controls, it's also about understanding the strategic inputs that are required to make sure it works. So there are actually three key pillars of cybersecurity. It is that simplistic when you think of it, in terms of developing it. There's the people side of it, there's the process side of it, there's the technology side of it. But of those three pillars, the people pillar is very, very important. Get that right, it makes the other pillars a little bit, just that, a little bit easier to navigate. And that's why the focus is on creating that awareness. And as I mentioned earlier in another program, organizations like SLBC has a role to play in this as well, ensuring that you have the relevant cybersecurity slots to create that awareness, that sensitization. But also, as an institution, you need to adopt an internal lens and also do the same for members of staff, which I know your Director General is thinking about, and that is a core priority for her as well.
Okay, so Mr. McLean, since your inception, how would you describe Sierra Leone's, based on your assessment? So based on your assessment, how do you describe Sierra Leone's so based on your assessment, how would you describe Sierra Leone's Sierra Leone accepting issues with regards to cybersecurity and also safeguarding critical information?
Well, the maturity of Sierra Leone at the moment in terms of cybersecurity as a nation is, based on my observation, one you describe as a nascent maturity. That is, we've just started the journey. We're right at the initial phases of it. But there are some steps that have been taken, which are the right steps. So for instance, we've created a National Cybersecurity Center, which is looking into cybersecurity at a national level, engaging all the relevant stakeholders within the public sector and within government to do so. But we also have other key institutions who are also stepping up. Academia and the educational institution are also taking cybersecurity seriously, baking cybersecurity into what they do. One of the things we have to do is to ensure that cybersecurity is injected into our curriculum. That's kind of rule number one. Cybersecurity has to be mainstream. We have to, produce cybersecurity graduates. We have to produce cybersecurity experts. But we also have to work with other nations who have been able to go through this journey successfully, who might be of a higher maturity compared to where we are today, and collaborate with them and benefit from those as well.
So what is the reception like from these businesses that you've approached in introducing the cybersecurity space to them? What has been the reception from these businesses?
It's rather mixed. You have those who are pro cybersecurity, enthusiastic, understand it, they get it, they know it's required, like for instance the likes of Local Commercial Bank, EcoBank and others that we have worked with. And you have others that you will introduce cybersecurity to and they actually have absolutely no clue why you're having a conversation with them. So it's a journey for us, taking people through. There's a mixed reaction to it, but we know that it is a duty to ensure that that reaction is no longer mixed, but it becomes a consensus that everyone realizes that cybersecurity is a must and no longer an option. So that's what we're doing, taking people through that journey. And for those whom are not quite enthusiastic about it, we let them understand why they should be enthusiastic about it. And one of the things we do as well is to provide pro bono services to institutions and individuals as well, for those who might not be able to afford us in terms of their budget.
Now, Lois, you mentioned individuals. Let's away now from cyber risk and other threats aligned to cyber security. There's a new phenomenon, cyberbullying, is happening online. I mean, of course, the cyberspace talks about the internet in general, of course, and all that gets related to using or accessing the internet. I mean, what sort of individual or individualistic approaches have you been employing aside from organizations you deal with? How do you, bring cyber awareness to individuals and especially protect them from cyberbullying and stuff like that?
So the two things that actually that comes to mind. Firstly, sometime earlier this year, we brought a group together. They're referred to as tech queens. And these are ladies who are into tech. And we spent some time with them, training them on how they can safely and securely navigate cyberspace, but how they can identify cyberbullying and what to do about it. So practical steps that they must take. And there are times actually, just as you have the playground bully, usually the playground bully will pick on the most vulnerable. The same thing happens as well in cyberspace. If the hackers or an individual who is bent and bullying realizes that you haven't got the relevant controls in place, you haven't got the relevant know-how, you're posting things that you're not supposed to be posting,
Definitely.
you have personal images and things like that, they will exploit you.
Because we see situations where individuals, they will hack into people's private information or even photographs or videos, and then you see them being proliferate.
Correct. So, and that's why we say that Cyber Hygiene 101 is one of the things we do.
Okay.
In fact, just about a fortnight ago, I mentioned earlier the Walton Gilpin Cyber Circuit, which is kind of based at Local Commercial Bank, but it has an external lens. We brought together the community, so we organized the Walton Gilpin Cyber Circuit Series 3, which was a community edition, and that brought together just ordinary people, from traders to people within the fishing community to the boat communities. We brought all of them together and we spent a day taking them through the fundamentals, how to protect your phone, how to protect your WhatsApp, how to create a secure password, how to protect your data, what should you be posting online, what you should not be posting online, how do you make sure that actually your phone is constantly updated, how do you ensure your banking applications are protected. So we spent a whole day discussing those with them, discussing those issues with them. Those are the practical steps we're taking. Because there are two sides to it. As an individual, you've got your key responsibility, what you have to do, but you have to be made aware of it as well, and someone must support you through that journey.
Okay, continue to stay with us on the program is the Chief Executive Officer and Founder of EST is Lawrence McEwen. Now from there we'll move on to another issue. As Parliament continues debating the Constitutional Amendments Bill, discussions about governance, democracy and the rule of law remain at the forefront of national attention. We have been joined in the studio by the Executive Director of the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law, Jeremy Simbo, who will share insight into the significance of the proposed amendments, their potential impact on the country's legal and democratic framework, and why citizen participation or engagement is important on the constitutional reform matters. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. So for our viewers to understand, how important or significant is this constitutional review process for us as a country?
It's so important that remember the constitution is the law of the state. So it speaks to the fact that it's so important that we didn't need to pay much more attention to it. But before that, let me really start by appreciating the government of Sierra Leone, the parliament and the government of Sierra Leone, with respect to what they have done so far by sustaining the review process. And to also say thanks to the poor of this country who have been following and continue to follow in, with the hope that we have a better progressive constitution. So what we saw on Tuesday was a clear display of statesmanship to a very extent. For quite too long, we have not seen such a display, from our MPs or by parliament, where our MPs sat from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. And also straight for so many seconds and very today. So which speaks to the fact that it's something that is so serious, So the constitution, the electoral constitution that has been under review from the days of former President Abattoir and Amateur Kaba, through the Peter Toka, report that we received, and later on the former President Hannes by Kroma was bringing he established an 18-man committee that was headed by Justice Edmund Cowan. That committee did extensive consultations across the length and breadth of Sierra Leone. They tried every chiefdom in this country. So we say thanks to them as well. So now also again, it has now, it's like now currently they're going to maybe wind up with the current administration, the Leone administration. So for us as an institution, we really want to encourage them to expedite the process now because it has taken quite too long. Remember the current text of the constitution that we have in the 1991 constitution, has several lacunas, which is not to say it's not good by any means. It is good. Well, it has so many great areas, you understand? And for us, we think it requires, a review. And the review must be expedited. And the thing that we also want to remind our politicians, you understand, that they need to have in mind as they go through this process, we encourage them to detach party politics away from this process. Because if they continue to maintain party grants or partisan positions or individual positions, bearing in mind that, if we go this way, our party will power. If we release this one or if we accept this one, we will remain in opposition forever. Or if we say we need to accept this, then we'll be in governance for God knows how long. So who will continue to suffer? The people. And I want to again remind them that the people of this country have spoken. We have spoken as a people and as a nation. How have we spoken? First, through the Peter Toka report. Second, through the Justice Cowan, the Cowan-led committee. Understand? And through the TRC. When you go back to those documents, for example, the TRC clearly recommended that we need to review our constitution because of several reasons that I highlighted. And later the committee the process was started with the late President Abattoir Kaba, and later on continued by the former President Kroma, and we have who has promised us a new constitution. Sierra Leoneans are not looking forward to just a new constitution, but we are looking forward to receiving a progressive and people-centered constitution. Because if we don't have a progressive and people-centered constitution, then for me it will definitely be a waste of time. Because a constitution is not something that just review or change over time. It takes time to review a constitution. Remember, it's the supreme law of the land. The current text that we have, we got that one way back in 1991, more than 30 years now. So which means it requires a review. So that's why we still keep struggling with it. Because we are continuously seeing where politicians, demonstrating vested interest in some areas, for example. Let's say, for example, the one that has to do with the PR system. Go back to the TRC report in Clear. They recommended the PR system also. Come to think about the Cowan report, the PR system is also recommended. Come to the tripartite committee recommendations. We have the PR system as well. They recommended as one of the best practices for electoral reforms in Sierra Leone. So what we are saying as an institution is, we, in as much as the PR system is being proposed in this current text, but we want them to tell us at least the threshold, and also to lower the threshold. Because in as much as you are proposing a PR system, but also lower the threshold, so that you not open the space for, I don't want to call them smaller parties, but other parties to occupy, the political stage as well. But if you just want to increase it by, then you also using that to not encourage them to occupy the political stage.
The concerns right now with this PI system has to do with smaller parties not giving the space. Because when you look at the parliament today, even though the amendments bill is being debated, we only have 2 parties in parliament. And you are making mention of the different recommendations, the TRC, be it its appetite, they are zeroing on the PI system. But there are still concerns around the PI system.
Yes, so that's where for me we continue to see high level of intellectual and political dishonesty at work. High level of intellectual and political dishonesty. Go back to all of those reports, the TRC report, the tripartite committee recommendations, and even the COWA report. So that's the more reason why we are saying we want the government of Australia to tell us and to suggest a threshold. During the 2023 elections, the threshold for you to get a seat in parliament was 11.9%. For local council was 5%. Those ones were so high. So we are not saying reduce them. You understand? We only have 2 parties now in parliament, the APC and the SLPP. Maybe because of the threshold so high. You understand? But we equally have councillors in some councils where we have never, or we used to have very limited members representing other political parties because of the notion that they are their strongholds or not their strongholds as a result of the PR step that we undertook the other day. But which is not to say that the PR system is so good 100%. Remember, it also has its own merits and demerits as well. You see, so that's why we are saying, let us go back to those documents. In the COWA report, we have 134 recommendations. And out of those 134 recommendations, this current government accepted 50, rejected 84. You understand? So it's a serious concern all by itself. The APC government, they say, accepted only 30, accepted 34, rejecting 100. So it's a serious issue all by itself. The people of this country have spoken. Let's go back to those reports and ensure that we bring in or we zero in on the recommendations of the people in those reports.
As we go back to those very important documents, it will be, of course, a novelty for Sierra Leoneans to really call on their lawmakers to really look into and identity cases of these very significant documents. They are sacred to the people of Sierra Leone. Talking about the TRC report, for example. Of course, we made a lot of recommendations that to date are yet to be implemented by any of these 2 governments that have really ruled Sierra Leone. If we are to even go into, the Justice Edmund Cowan's 80-man committee recommendations, they also came forward with a white paper that even the previous government refused to implement some of those recommendations. Talking about the tripartite committee reports, there is a portion that talks about the certain nomination committee, replacing that with section 32D of the amended constitution. These are all bottlenecks for this new constitution. But like you said, going back, the question I wanted to put forward to you is the government really doing the people of Sierra Leone favor? Why I ask this question is because there is a country that is grappling with a constitution that is already becoming obsolete. It's been in a review process for over 2 decades. It's not entirely going to be a new constitution, but an amended constitution that has almost outlived its relevance. Is the government or politicians are doing the people of Sierra Leone favor?
No, they are not. If I may quickly respond to that question, they are definitely not doing us a favor. They are not gifting us by any means. You understand? When this current government was in opposition, they promised us the revised constitution. Yes, it was a manifesto promise that was made. When the executive government was in opposition, they did say in their first term they are going to provide Sierra Leone the constitution. So when they came, they assumed the race of governance in 2018. All what we saw was a white paper that rejected out of the 134 recommendations, the COWA report that only accepted how many? 50 of them, rejecting 84. Yeah. which is so serious all by itself. You understand? So it's a serious thing altogether.
Yes.
And again, after the 2023 general elections, we saw the APC asking their elective officials not to participate in government. That led to the boycott or abstinence, from the local councils and the councils and parliament as well. You understand? And what happened again? We saw a situation where moral guarantors came in, they engaged them, and who they did those moral guarantors engage? Only those two political parties, maybe not the rest of the political parties, including some other institutions as well. So when those two parties were engaged, they put in the tripartite committee what they put together was one. They said if a party should contest an election for 2 consecutive terms without winning, that political party must be registered. Come to think about it. So all what they are pushing for when it comes to electoral reforms is their interest to very
maybe to further reinforce
that. So really serving to the very well.
To further reinforce that, we're going to be talking a bit politics this morning because we have our next guest is a politician. But just before getting there, just playing the devil's advocate, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice was in Parliament and telling the people of Sierra that well, for now we are just bringing an amendment on constitutional reform. The rest of the constitution will come back to this house or come back to the constitution for them to make addendum, to make addition to, or maybe to remove certain portions of the constitution that they don't deem fit any longer. But the crux of the matter still remains. We are now talking about electoral reforms. We are only talking about, we are only surrounding the amendments on elections because these two political parties or these two political groups that have ruled Sierra Leone for the longest of time since independence are only yearning for their interests, just as you say.
So if we continue to see the reform process in that regard, then it's not doing any good to Sierra Leone by any means. For me, it would definitely become a wasted effort. So that's why we are saying as an institution that we are not just looking forward to see a new constitution, but we're looking forward to see a constitution, a progressive and people-centered constitution. And let me say this again, before saying that, let me just thank the Attorney General for the succinct presentation he made already in Parliament, and by properly explaining what the entire process is, what it really means to have a revised constitution, and what this current constitution, if revised, we have to do will be of benefits to the rest of the country. You understand? But now to your question. In a situation where politicians will continue to take partisan position in this review process, definitely skew the process to a different position. So that's the one reason why you keep seeing, for example, the APC and the SLPP, whose political interest is so vested in this business.
Yes.
They keep maintaining their positions. Some of them are of the opinion that if we have, for example, the PR system, it will take them God knows how long to come to power.
Definitely.
Some others are of the view that if now we are not going with the PR system, we have to go with the first past first. We'll definitely lose political authority. Leaving the people out of this conversation.
Because that's based on their own personality.
Forgetting to understand that they are representing the people. Forgetting to understand that, or to note that the people are in the majority. You understand? Forgetting to also know the fact that we have spoken through various study reports, the Cowanley report, the TRC report, and the Peter Tucker report, and to also the very large extent the tripartite committee recommendations report, which is clearly speaking or sticking to the point that there should be Sierra Leoneans should now go forward with the PR. But maybe away from the PR, let's come to also think about what some other provisions in this recommendation of this current proposal is saying. The one that has to do with fixed date elections.
Yes.
Which is also very good for Sierra Leone.
Certainly.
Second Saturday in November. You understand? That's also a very good one. You see, now we are saying, for example, that's a very good date, yes, because it's also in the dry, so a very large extent, because you can't bring in elections during the rainy seasons. A lot of people won't be participating.
Although the leader of government business, Honorable Samuel Tunima, had some reservations about that, stating that every second Saturday in November, what if maybe people who might be traveling out of the country people may be engaged, but he said when it comes to the committee stage, he will have to make some recommendations to amend that. But is it really a plus for Sierra Leone to have a fixed date for election?
It is. It is a plus for Sierra to go to election on a fixed date. There have been moments in Sierra Leone when some politicians were even thinking that, no, is it right for Sierra Leone to go into election now? Forgetting to note that we have a 5-year term period in the 1991 Constitution.
So let me just hold it here quickly. We'll come back to that particular. Let's take a pin on it. Now that we have our next guest, a politician, maybe let me just squeeze this in a little bit. Maybe the portion where we can give government its flower is talking about the enshrining the Giwi Act into the Constitution.
Sure.
Whereas like in the World Council in general, it's going to be gender sensitive amended Constitution, giving 30% quota to women for female political representation in the committee.
That's a very good one. It's a very good one. We also recommended that. You understand that should be an entrenched clause in the current text of the proposed Constitution, because so that we will not see a situation where a new government will come someday, sometimes say, no, we are going to get rid of this one, we're going to repeal and amend this one. Okay. You understand? So it's a very good one. Okay. We really want to see that one entrenched.
Okay, continue to serve us on the program is the Executive Director for the Center of Accountability and Rule of Law, Jeremy Simbo. Well, we take a health tip up today, and today we look at hepatitis B, treatment and cure. Hepatitis B is a viral infection that affects the liver. While there is no cure that completely eliminates the virus, it can be effectively managed, and many people live healthy lives with proper care. Let us watch and learn from a health tip of today.
If you're living with a thyroid condition, you know it can affect your energy, metabolism, and more. But did you know it can affect your eyes? Thyroid eye disease, or TED, can make your eyes feel irritated and affect your vision. It can even change how your eyes look. But here's the good news. Most cases are mild and manageable. And when it comes to treatment, you have options. Let's start at the beginning. TED happens when you have an autoimmune condition, most commonly Graves' disease, that affects your thyroid. In some people, the immune system also targets the tissues and muscles around the eyes. That can cause things like red or watery eyes, dry eyes, light sensitivity, double vision, puffy eyelids, bulging eyes, or eyes that won't fully close. Certain factors can make thyroid eye disease worse, including smoking, uncontrolled thyroid levels, and some treatments like radioactive iodine, especially in people at higher risk. Treating thyroid eye disease depends on the phase and the severity of the disease. During the active phase, symptoms may come and go. Your care team may recommend lubricating eye drops for dryness, special lenses or vision aids to help with double vision. In select patients, supplements like selenium may support eye health. Medications, and in some cases radiation therapy, can help lower inflammation. Once TED becomes stable, your provider may recommend surgical options. Eyelid surgery can improve comfort and appearance. Orbital decompression can lower pressure on your optic nerve, but not everyone needs that. If you are living with a thyroid condition and notice changes in your eyes, talk with your healthcare provider. Managing TED early can help protect your vision and support long-term eye health.
Welcome back. Hope we learned a lot from a health tip of today that's to do with hepatitis B. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with the program. The National Grand Coalition remains one of Sierra Leone's recognized political parties despite facing challenges that have affected its stability and public image. The party acknowledged that internal disputes have affected its stability and public perception, but maintains that efforts are underway to strengthen unity, rebuild confidence among members. Well, in the studio we have the chairman of NGC, Mohammed Kouma, who will give us an update on the party's present situation and ongoing reforms. Good morning and welcome to.
Good morning, listeners. Good morning to everyone.
Okay, so before we talk on your challenges, what's your assessment so far of the constitutional review process that is ongoing?
Well, it's a good start. I think when this whole process started, I was with this medium and then putting up our positions and where the party stands on what is happening now. And I think our position just fits in with the civil society organization, that we are not in oppose of the PR system because it has its own merits, because it assures women's participation there. It is the only system that you can use to assure women's other, how would I say, maybe disabilities and all those things, their participation into the political space. And then, but what we found out, the last threshold they used was like, you cannot use this type of threshold because that will just stifle the process from other people to participate, not only from other political parties, but also from independent candidates. Because if you make the threshold so high, it might be difficult for one person to contest in this constituency, then expect that individual to score almost 12% of the districts. So those are the things we said, no, we support you on this one. We love the idea of a PR system, but with a lower threshold, so that to open the political space.
So what is the threshold you're looking for smaller parties?
There is, in politics, in Sierra Leone, it's not like a smaller parties because the same, yes, they've been in government for far too long, that you cannot deny that. Let's say the APC, they've been almost 25 years non-stop, and then they came back to power, spent over 10 years. The SLP doing back about 10 years, and then, so they've been in politics for far too long, we understand that. But whatever they are doing, let's say in terms of VPRC, whatever the fees they pay for candidates, that's the same fees we pay as well. It's like they cannot say, oh, well, because SLPP pay 1 million, NGC, you pay 2 million. No, we still pay the same 1 million. So we are the same as a political party. And, well, there is a negotiation, we cannot put it now. But we are part of the system, part of the negotiation. Because politics negotiation, you need to engage and then come up with a reasonable something that we all agreed on. So we are working behind the scene on that. But the only thing for us, that's we are saying now is we are not going to support any PR system with a higher threshold like the 11.9%.
So what is going on with the NGC?
NGC, well, now it's going on well. We can say that, well, for every political party, for every institution, you must have turbulences there. And we face so many shocks anyway. We remember 2018 elections, we were so vibrant, we were thinking that, there is nothing, we'll change the system. We are so excited. And then we have that shock with the elections. So that dampened the spirit of many. So like, I don't think a third party can do it and all. So, but we managed to gather ourselves together, put ourselves together, and then we said, okay, we formed an alliance with SLBP 2023. So in that alliance, I think we mixed our message. Our messaging was poor. Because we agreed that we are not going to produce a presidential candidate. That was the agreement by then. So, and then for the members of parliament, we did not have a distinct message to sell our members of parliament or most of our councillors. So we learned from that. All right, now, immediately after 2023, that was the face of the party, Dr. Yumikela, left. And our party as well, the former chairman left, Dr. Bright and all. So it was very turbulent period that time. So you can see, but the good thing about the membership of this party, they love the party so much that it's like, they sat back and they said, look, we will not allow this institution to die. We will come back together. So we use that as an opportunity, because sometimes some of the political parties, let's say third forces, most of them die when the initial phase of that party either lives or die. So for them, it's hard for them to showcase that they are available, their identity. So we use this as an opportunity to say, okay, we've had all this work, they've left. Let's show ourselves that we are independent, we can move, and it's no more a one-man face, but a national face. And that's what we've been doing. And we've gone through our lower level elections, we've done from ward, all over the countries. We've done our constituencies all over the country, done districts, region, we've done our women's congress, the youth congress, we're about to go to our convention. And as we speak, I can tell you that NGC has over 13,000 executive right across the country, just executive members. So we've shown that character, that this is a party of national character. All over, we have members in every ward, We have executives, 18 executives in every ward of this country. And we have members all over. There's a threshold within our rules and regulation that for this ward to participate, you must reach this. These are the things you have to. So we are now trying to go to our convention. We would have held our convention on 1819, but you know, due to our regulatory body, they asked us to wait. So, all right, but they've been very professional with us. Anyway, we are still waiting on them. So, okay, what's the purpose of that direction for us to wait? Because we want to go to our convention and then at least to showcase to this nation, because we are planning to invite SLBC to cover that program for 2 days. So at least your viewers will see that, okay, we thought NGC has collapsed, but no, they've managed to again come together in order to show that we are still there.
So is the alliance with SLPP still in existence?
Well, the alliance is 5 years. I don't know why this discussion, you know, sometimes for me, I thought the alliance was for 2023 elections, and it's a 5-time period. So what is the purpose of having this discussion about an alliance? Are we still in an alliance, not in an alliance? What does that mean?
Well, want to know, because you stated that according to the alliance, you should not put out a presidential
candidate for 2023.
Okay, so that's why I asked the question if the alliance is still in existence.
Yes, it's still in existence because it's just for this time. And 2028, we intend to put a presidential candidate. Okay, we have people that want to contest for flag bearers within the NGC. So we know that one. And we'll put a presidential candidate for 2028.
Chairman Mohamed Kuroma,
yes.
I've been listening to you with a very rapt attention. As you made your submissions, said you see a trumpeting effort of the party to bring back unity, sanity, and stability, which is very most important in terms of what you do. As I feel as your task is as the chairman, are you also aware in the new amended constitution that there's a clause on section 21 that will deregister the party? Based on what you said earlier on, there are shocks and so some people are aggrieved, there are internal rancor, and so some people are disgruntled, they had to hang away. There are a lot of exits from executive top bottom, and all of those cause a part of the dysfunction for a couple of times. And on the basis of dysfunctionality, your party might be deregistered. Are you aware of that?
No, I think that information is not true to say that our party will be deregistered, because we have active councillors, so we won the election. The past 2 elections we've been winning.
I'm just saying, if it continues like that, in terms of dysfunctionality and the party, there are a lot of other political parties. It's not novelty to the NGC, including the so-called quote-unquote bigger parties. I've had their internal rancor, and we've seen the disunity that disparage their political parties. But what I'm saying, for your own case, we saw a lot of, there was a mass exodus from top bottom. The executive was in disarray, a lot of, you're only trying to get back on your feet. I'm only trying to put it to you that in the amended constitution, for dysfunctionality of the political party, it can cause it to be deregistered. Are you aware of that?
Well, not really.
Okay, now that you are aware, what are you going to be doing as the chairman to ensure you don't get to that point?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying to you, that I highlighted the shocks that we had.
Yeah, because you painted the picture as if now everything is
settled. No, well, first of all, within for every establishment, there will be sometimes there should be a little bit dispute here and there.
Okay.
You expect that. You cannot put 10 people in one room. You expect them, all of them, to have the same idea. We might have the same journey, but the direction might be different.
So he is asking now,
so
what are the reforms that you have put in place?
So,
because there is a law already that is set to be passed in Parliament.
If that gets the parliamentary green light, then you should be hanging on the balance.
Because I'm shocked to know that you are only knowing that now.
Yes, sorry, let me just come please. Let me make some clarification and provide some education here. That one was proposed by the tripartite committee.
Yes.
That after 2 consecutive elections, for a political party that may fail to win election, you understand, will be deregistered. That proposal came from the tripartite committee. But in the amended bill that we have before Parliament, that's not there. You understand? It got kicked by the Attorney General's office with serious consultations with the MPs and some other political players that this is not good for our democracy. So let's know if they have it. You understand?
Okay, now that you've said that, no, let me just see it. Let me just see it. This is the amended constitution that was circulated nationwide under Section 21 of the Political Parties Act 2022, Act number 25 of 2022. It's amended by the insertion immediately after the section that following the new section, the commission shall determine whether to deregister a political party under subsection 1, consider 1 or A, the party continue fulfillment of its constitutional role in shaping public opinion and governing political participation. B, the extent of the party's organizational presence and its compliance with the requirements of this act, and whether the party contributes to democratic pluralism and notwithstanding the absence of electoral successes. A decision to deregister a political party shall be A, made in writing and supported by reasons. B, communicated to the party within 7 days of decision, and C, published in the Gazette of the Commission official website. So I'm just bringing this. So it's not something, maybe Mr. Jeremy Bensimu, you need to massage this particular B.
Yeah.
What I'm saying in essence, we don't want to belabor the point.
So sorry, can I respond to that, please?
Okay, please go ahead.
The question was, sorry, what we have as a recommendation from the tripartite committee is that where a political party consecutively fails to win an election and to have representatives in parliament for 2 consecutive terms, they recommended to direct that. But that is not the case now in the new text of the proposed
Mr. Jeremy
amendment of
Bensimu, for a political party that will be forming alliances with other political parties, and then in certain areas they will refuse to participate in election, is it not a call for concern?
It is a very
But that's what we are saying. That's why we are putting the points
But also political parties form alliances. They do. It's
and
not
those alliances will deprive you from participating in election. That's what we are saying. At some point, there were areas where NGC could not participate in elections.
Especially for presidential candidates.
And as well for MPs and councillors.
But he's saying the alliance was for them not to present a presidential candidate.
That's not the
and
only
not to
issue.
participate.
But again, what I'm saying, I want us to be clear. You are a civil society opponent.
Yes.
You know you should be better informed.
And that's what I'm saying here.
Yes.
Because of
there were areas for consensus building between, the alliance they formed. They could not put candidates forward in terms of be it member of parliament or councillorship, because these were areas where they deemed fit that were easily could be won by the SNPP. So why we are in an alliance, why would we want to put forward a candidate? Let us allow it to slide. But what we are saying in essence, it's not that we are casting aspersion on them for forming an alliance. We are looking at the function of this particular clause in the amendment B. It will cause the political party to dysfunction. The dysfunctionality is what is underpinned in this particular amendment B. So if, for example, like the case of C4C, for example, we are so much in disarray, they went to court and they were even given an injunction not to even contest. If that continues for a political party, maybe over a period of 2 years, is that not a call for concern?
It is.
That's what we are saying.
But I know, I think that's different from the question that you asked.
You ask it because
I'm not contradicting what you said. That's also that's very strong.
No, it's not different.
Of the political
we are just reminding them, blowing an alarm, or maybe raising the
no, for you to have said that for a political party not to to win, to contest an election, you understand, for 2 consecutive terms without winning, will lead to them being registered.
Yes.
That's when I said no. That one came as a recommendation from the tripartite committee, but it's not part of the current text of the proposed amendment that we have before Parliament. It's not there.
No, we are not talking about the you see, maybe you are getting it mixed up. That's why I read from the provision.
I have understood that.
Good. I have, but it is functionality that is underpinned here.
Yes, it's a requirement.
Good.
It's a very
so if the political party becomes dysfunctional, that's what I'm putting it to you.
Yeah, it is a requirement.
Good. That's what I'm putting it to you.
I want you to define here what is participation. And what do you think about if Mr.
I don't think I'm in the proper place to provide that to you, because it's already what I'm saying here, we don't belabor the point. These are the issues that we ordinarily come up from citizens. I want you to know that, Mr. Mameko,
yes,
you are now carrying on your shoulder the responsibility of a political party that wants struggle. So bearing those thoughts in mind, you should be very much alerted. You should be wide awake to take all of those suppositions we are now making to you into a good account. That's what we are now putting forward to you.
Oh, definitely. But I'm just saying, oh, what is in that bill will lead to our deregistering. I'm saying that I'm challenging you that that's the wrong analogy. First of all, whatever it is, the previous text to this current text will not lead to NGC deregistered. So I want you to know that. And let me tell you, NGC is one of the most, as of now, I just mentioned to you that as it is now, my party has over 13,000 executive members right across the country. So thinking that it is dysfunctional, no, we've gone through.
So that is what he's asking about the reforms that you're making as a party to ensure that your party is not dysfunctional.
So that's what I'm saying. Well, it's part of
asking about the reforms.
Or maybe Esther, what Mr. Mr. is finding difficult.
No, I'm not finding it difficult.
There is saying that leadership is cause. All other things are just effects. In a place where there is no proper leadership, there will be a lot of areas, there will be a lot of room for dysfunctionality. Now, what we are saying to you is about questioning your leadership. So it is up to you to provide answers how you will provide leadership to really bring NGC back on its feet. That's what we are asking you, not that we are casting aspersion on you.
No, I'm not saying you are taking casting aspersion. What I'm saying here is for us to have a clear, even your questions to have clear, so that the viewers, for them will have an insight, a clear view as to what is the conversation going on here, rather than just having a tit for tat or something like that. No, that's not what I'm saying here. Now, within my leadership, I've taken the party over a year ago. Within that, we've gone through the first thing you have to do is trying to restructure political parties by having its structures all over the country. When you have structures all over the countries, it shows that you are moving forward.
You seem to be completing the executive. What is the gender representation in terms of
it is 30%? We are more than 30%, and within now we have district executive, district chairperson that are women. We have the regional chairperson that are women in our executive all over, and we have this threshold that we cannot accept any executive that is less than 30% women representative, because we advocated for that a long time ago.
Okay, so what should the public expect from NGC as you have been trumpeting all the goodies that you have been doing for your party?
No, what the party has been doing, the good thing that the party has been doing.
As the chair of the party, you have been spearheading the affairs of your party. What are the expectations? What should
first of all, as I was saying here, NGC now is showcasing. We're trying to showcase to the Sierra Leoneans that, okay, we faced our shocks before, and we've used that as an opportunity to show that this is an institution that is ready to stay. All right. Now that if we go to our convention, when we finish our convention, there are things we will have to sit back and then review either constitutions and everything. We're going to do that. But within now, we are showing that this is a party. At this moment now, we are trying to even have our permanent structures all over the countries. We are now putting things on that to show that this is a party that is coming to stay. So you cannot just say, oh, when we sit back, says, oh, because we've been conforming within the rules and regulations.
Thank you very much. He is Mohamed Kuroma, the chairman of the National Grand Coalition NGC Party, giving us a status update on the party insofar as conducting their primaries and of course being upbeat for conducting other elections leading to the card carrier of the party for the 2028 elections. The program is Good Morning Sierra. We still have the executive director, the founder and executive director for ETI Alliance Intelligence in the studio, Mr. Lawrence Marquez. Of course, just in closing, now, what's in terms of organizational resilience that you have provided? You made mention of the SMC, for example. We are time into information sharing. How can you provide firewall in terms of the information we give out to public, not to be breached by either hackers or infiltrators?
I think in that instance, that's a very good question, actually. You require a strategic response. So the very first thing we have to do as an organization is to say, okay, do you have a cybersecurity strategy in place? And what is the intention of that cybersecurity strategy? Once you have a robust cybersecurity strategy that's aligned to your strategic objectives, that is the objectives of the organization, then you can begin to think of how you protect the assets of that organization. And of course, those assets will need categorization. So that's what we'll do, and that's how we can help.
So the services you provide, are they free or?
Well, we are certainly not a charity. but we do offer pro bono services to organizations if required, and if there's a requirement from SLPC, of course, we'll consider.
Definitely.
So do you collaborate with the cybersecurity unit?
Well, you're referring to the National Cybersecurity. I know individuals who are there right at the top, and we discuss from time to time, but there's not an official collaboration with them. But we're both aware of what each other is doing, and cybersecurity is a team sport, so we know that we all have to work together.
Maybe extend a hand to them so that you can better secure our cyberspace in the country. But thank you very much. He is Lawrence Makuel, Executive Director and Founder of EST, I beg your pardon, intelligence, of course, talking to us here, applied intelligence, talking to us here on cybersecurity, and bringing security to cyberspace in Sierra Leone. We still have the Executive Director for, of course, the Center for Accountability of Local in the studio. In closing, we don't have a luxury of time. We now have the constitutional amendment being sent to the Legislative Committee of Parliament, and we are going to be looking to. It's going to be looked into, scrutinized very well, cross the T's and dot the I's. We don't have time for any position papers anymore. What are we looking forward to seeing?
We're looking forward to seeing a progressive and people-centered constitution. We're calling on the government, Parliament, and the government of Sierra Leone to expedite the review process. Sierra Leoneans are now tired of waiting to see a new constitution.
Oh, thank you very much. On that note, Mr. Mohamed Kuroma, finally, just before letting you go, you made mention that you soon have your convention for national officers. How soon will that be?
Within the next 3 weeks.
All right. And you did assure that you invited SLBC to cover.
Oh, definitely. SLBC will be one of the body that will be invited to go and cover the program.
We'll definitely be there.
All right, definitely will be there. But just before we go, Mr. Loris, you want to make an input on
Yes, I just wanted to add something that I observed the conversation, the political conversation that we're having here, and that has to do with constitutional review and constitutional reform. But this will be the very first time that Sierra Leone will be doing this against a landscape that has significantly changed. So we have to think of what's the digital perspective of this constitutional review and constitutional reform, how we can protect the communication so we don't have a lot of
Definitely, I'm sure Mr. Jelly is going to be taking notes on that. Maybe that was a missed opportunity for us as a nation because we've gone past that now. Definitely, I think that's something the AG's office as well going to be to. But thank you very much. On that note, we've been on the cuttings onto this edition of the program. It has been educative, interesting, of course, informative. The program has been Good Morning Sierra Leone. Until then, I'm Dennis Phil, and the program is tomorrow.
Esther Sako says many thanks to our production crew. We'll quickly take a quote of the day, and it's from British statesman Winston Churchill, and it says, "Success is not final, it is the courage to continue that counts." Good morning, Sierra Leone. Returns tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base. It's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold Natural Cocoa Powder, Sunny Gold Brown Sugar, Neat Fufu Flour, Shito, Pisa, and Moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.